Hello and welcome to the Star Wars Guys YouTube channel where the Force is family. I am Master Paul, and we're starting about 20 minutes early because I had fun last night doing that little bit of music before doing our Trek stuff last night. So I thought I would intentionally start early this time and do that again. Now give me a quick second to reach back behind me and grab my tuner. I just realized I have this guitar tuned wrong. So give me just a quick second and we'll get this fixed right. I had this put in D standard, but I'm going to have to put it in standard tuning again because my new Martin has to go back to the shop. And of course, hello to Mary Lanning. Thanks for joining. And give me another second too. I'm going to switch to my wireless headphones. All right. I probably should have thought this a little bit through, a little bit better. And of course, hello to Leia Rose. Thanks for joining. All right, I'll figure that out in a moment. All right, just give me a quick second here. I'll keep it in drop D for now. We'll do some drop D stuff. There you go, and grab a different pick too. That one. Here we go. That's better. All right, let's see. Need to. Yeah, that's what I need. All right. Let's start with, again, one of the ones that I wrote. And real quick, Mary Lanning says, I just got a new Star Wars book yesterday. Awesome. I did too. The first of the Jedi Academy trilogy is what I got. But I'm interested to hear what you got. But anyways, we're going to start with a song that I wrote for someone that I met last year at ICC Con, someone I've been following on TikTok for a while. And her, I guess you could say, username / professional name is Angel of Azarath, but she does a lot of cosplay. And what first turned my attention to her, for those that don't know the story, is she cosplayed a orange-skinned Twi'lek. And I decided just on a whim to write a song about the character that she cosplays. And this is that song. It's called The Fiery Dancer. Come one, come all, see the greatest show of Mos Eisley Tatooine. See the fiery dancer do her thing, moving like a cosmic dream. It only costs 10 credits just to get you in, 25 for a front row seat. You'll be mesmerized and hypnotized when she gets that groovy beat. She got orange skin glowing like the sun's, and her head till shake and sway. She's got a voice like honey and a pearly white smile that'll make heads turn her way. And when the music plays, her hips will sway like nothing you've ever seen. Yeah, you'll always remember the night you saw that Tatooine dancing queen. So come one, come all, see the greatest show of all sides leads Tatooine. See the fiery dancer do her thing, moving like a cosmic dream. It only costs 10 credit just to get you in, 25 for a front row seat. You'll be mesmerized and hypnotized when she gets that groovy beat. Now don't you get any funny ideas, there's a Mando by her side. A Kimbo Daxon of Clan Eldar, you never mess with his bride. As long as you mind your manners, son, he's a cool guy to be around. But if you mess around with the love of his life, he'll bury you in the ground. So come one, come all, see the greatest show of all sides leads Tatooine. See the fiery dancer do her thing, moving like a cosmic dream. It only costs 10 credit just to get you in, 25 for a front row seat. You'll be mesmerized and hypnotized when she gets that groovy beat. She also has an adopted son, a boy in desperate need. He came one day and won her heart when she heard his anxious plea. She did not expect when she took this gig she would start a family. But this is our way, the three of them say, don't believe us, come and see. So come one, come all, see the greatest show of all sides leads Tatooine. See the fiery dancer do her thing, moving like a cosmic dream. Margani, Akimbo, and Kylo Ren, all sides leads their town now. And now at the end, watch the fiery dancer gracefully take a bow. All right. And of course, hello to Nova Vaughn. Thanks for joining. And Mary Lanning says it's one from the Legends, The Last Jedi, not the movie, though it's different. Okay, yeah, definitely send that to me. I'm definitely interested in looking into that. All right, so like I said, that was one that I wrote called The Fiery Dancer. And hopefully, Angel Azarath will be at the ICC convention this year. That way, I don't know yet how this will work, but that way I can sing that song live and she can dance to it. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, I have no idea how that would work. All right, let's see. Let's keep it in drop D and do another song. Just double check my tuning real quick. We're going to do another song that I wrote for another person that I met at the ICC convention. This tuner does not like to cooperate. There we go. All right. Like I said, I'm going to do another song now in honor of another friend of mine that I have met at the ICC convention, someone that everyone here should know, and it's a guy by the name of the legendary Tron. So this is a song that I wrote just for him. If I can get the words. There it is. Come with me on a journey to a place you've never seen before. A place where technology comes to life. A place where users can gather and share positive vibes. A place called the Grid. And who's the leader of this place? Who fights for the users? The legendary Tron. The legendary Tron, epic as can be. He's on a mission that is plain to see, to spread good vibes around the Grid and guarantee that your disabilities Can't stop who you want to be. His name is Nate and he's wheelchair bound, but that's no bother to the dream he found. He's determined to become the best pro gamer around. None better can be found. Just watch him in a Fortnite showdown. The legendary Tron, you make a smile, and the joy you give lasts quite a while. The legendary Tron, such a real great friend, I can't wait to see you stream again. His Twitch supporters, the grid he names, they cheer him on as he plays his games. All the jaws drop as he leaves his foes in flames. Each time the same, he'll never miss each time he aims. The legendary Tron, you make us smile, and the joy you give lasts quite a while. The legendary Tron, such a real great friend, I can't wait to see you stream again. Oh, the legendary Tron, you make us smile, and the joy you give lasts quite a while. The legendary Tron, such a real great friend, I can't wait to see you stream again. All right, that was the one that I wrote for Tron, and Mary Lanning just sent me that picture on Twitter. Okay, let me look at that real quick. All right, what we got here? Ooh, okay. All right, that's cool. So real quick, I'll just share my screen so that you guys can see this too, if that's okay, Mary. But this basically is what Mary got. Now, I didn't know that this book existed, and I'm curious now what that's about. That looks like Luke, but that's also dark hair, so I don't know. That also looks like Vader's helmet in the background. So I'm gonna look further into that and see what I can see about that. And Leia Rose asks, are the novels you are reading canon? No. Right now, I'm focusing mostly on the Legends canon stuff, just because that's... I mean, to be fair, I really haven't read any of the actual canon stuff yet, but the Legends stuff right now interests me the most, because that time period I know the least about. So that's what I'm doing. All right, so let's see. Hold on a second. Thought I had this in tune. All right, that should do it. And yes, that's kind of where I am, Leia Rose, is the Jedi Academy books. So we'll be focusing on Jaina and Jason Solo, and of course Anakin Solo when he comes around. But let's see. I think for this next one, I'm going to do one that I didn't write, but one that... Let me see. All right, I'm going to do another one that I wrote. This is, I don't need the capo for this one. This one's called Love of My Life, and it is based on the love story between Anakin and Padme in episode 2. So we're going to go ahead and do that. It had been 10 years since we last met, but there we were again. And I couldn't help still feeling just like that boy of 10. The long fall into the Gondark's nest was nothing to the pounding in my chest. I knew right then that you were the love of my life. It must have been the will of the Force that Obi-Wan and I arrived. If we hadn't, when that hunter struck, I'm not sure you'd have survived. The day we left to hide on Naboo, I was overjoyed and you were too. And with that first kiss, you became the love of my life. I'd fight the Clone Wars by myself just to hear your voice again. I'd walk the whole Dune Sea to see your smile. I'd take the fires of Mustafar and endure the worst kind of pain just to have more time with you, the love of my life. When I was grieving my mother's death, you were there to comfort me. You listened as I raved about my Tusken atrocities. And when it seemed our death was near, we were brave and made our feelings clear. I told you that you were the love of my life. I often shed a tear when I recall our wedding day. It was just you and me, no one else to get in our way. But the war had other plans. It was nothing our love could not withstand. Through it all, you remained the love of my life. When you told me you were with child, I didn't know what to say. My dreams would frighten me that you would die your delivery day. If I lost you the way I lost my mother, it'd be too great a cost. So I gave myself to the dark side to save you. Now you're gone, and now I'm not the same man I was before. My body's ruined now, my soul completely torn. The cruelest part about my fate is that my lust for power became so great that it overshadowed you, the love of my life. I'd fight the Clone Wars by myself just to hear your voice again. I'd walk the whole Dune Sea to see your smile. I'd take the fires of Mustafar and endure the worst kind of pain just to have more time with you, the love of my life. I hate to say it, but you were right. Our secret love destroyed us both that night, but I still do not regret the love of my life. Yeah, I still do not regret the love of my life. All right. So I think with that one, we're going to go ahead and stop the music and get to the actual discussion. So with that, Michael should be joining any moment. And we're going to go ahead and start our discussion. So we have 3 things to talk about tonight, and that is both episodes. We're talking about episodes 2 and 3 of Mando season 3, and then after that, we're going to go briefly over Tales of the Jedi. Now, I do have to confess, this was something that we were going to do last week. We were going to talk about Mando season 2 and Tales of the Jedi, but we weren't able to because I was having some pretty severe internet issues. Thankfully, those have been resolved. So we're going to make up for lost time and talk about those as well as the newest episode of Mando today. And you want to talk about night and day between the first episode, the second episode, and the third episode of The Mandalorian Season 3. Nova saying, have you seen my reviews? Unfortunately, I have not, man. But if you would like to link them in the chat, you're certainly welcome to. But like I said, you want to talk about night and day between the first episode of Mando, which, like I said, I thought would have fit better as an episode 2 or an episode 3 of this show. And then you have the second episode, which was way better, in my opinion. And that, I think, probably should have been the season opener. And then you have the third episode, which was different altogether. So let's first get into that second episode. So in order to do that, we got to briefly recap what happened in that first episode and kind of leading up to that, where Mando, we learned this in Book of Boba Fett, Mando got kicked out of his Mando Club because he removed his helmet, and that's against the rules. And so he had to go and bathe himself in the living waters of the mines of Mandalore. And only then, at least according to the way, would he be admitted back into the Mandalorian culture. And so episode 1 specifically of season 3 ended with Mando going to Bo-Katan saying, I'm going to do this, but Bo-Katan saying, you're an idiot, there's nothing there. But Mando goes anyways. So we see the episode start, episode 2, which, by the way, is called The Mines of Mandalore. We see that episode start with everyone's favorite side character in this show, Peli Motto, the annoying old lady mechanic. She comes back and basically sells Mando an old astromech droid to aid him in his search, and she's about as annoying as ever. But then again, that's kind of what I was expecting out of her. So, whatever. But pretty much after that, that's where the episode gets really interesting. Because Mando and Grogu and this new astromech droid go to Mandalore itself. Not just that little side planet that Bo-Katan was on, Mando itself. And we see just truly how devastated Mandalore was from the firebombs of the Empire. And basically Mando's not even sure if the atmosphere is able to even be breathed. So that's why he got the astromech droid to take air samples of the atmosphere to make sure it was breathable um before getting outside. And at one point, Mando gets into a bit of a scuffle with these weird looking cave people things. They honestly looked like Wookiees on bath salts. And we see again just how inept Mando is at using the Darksaber. Like, I'll be right back. I'm gonna show you guys something. So I'm gonna use my lightsaber for an example. Oh, and by the way, side note, I'm getting a new lightsaber on Wednesday. There will be an unboxing video for it, but for now, we're gonna use Old Trusty here. So let me turn it on. Okay, so we've seen, how anyone else, even other non-Force users, handle a lightsaber. It's very fast and very light. Not when Mando uses it. He's like struggling to hold it up and, oftentimes has the points held down the whole time, and it's got really heavy swings to it. In fact, that's what injured him in that one episode of Book of Boba Fett. Now, he doesn't injure himself again, but you can tell that he is like really struggling to hold on to this Darksaber and struggling to use it effectively. And we still really don't know why. I mean, I have a personal theory that I had a personal theory, but that kind of got shot down by the fact that Bo-Katan, and I'll just go ahead and say it, we do see Bo-Katan use the Darksaber in this episode, and she's all over the place with it and, doing stuff right. So let me put that away. And so Bo-Katan clearly knows how to use the Darksaber better than Mando. So, but again, what's still not explained is why the Darksaber is so heavy in Mando's hands, and yet Bo-Katan, who is a smaller person than Mando, can wield the Darksaber like it's nothing. Yes, I get it, she has practice with it, but shouldn't the weight issue be more of an issue for her? And yet she wields it like a feather. But anyways, real quick, Nova says, I don't know if you got the links, but you can go to my Star Wars server on Discord. I can pull the links to that real quick. If anyone is interested in joining Nova Vaughn's server for his channel, I'll go ahead and put that in the chat here. And Michael has just popped in as Ironhide. What's up?
Nothing much. I honestly was a little bit distracted, not gonna lie, because of that one meme that I found the other day with Full Metal Jacket.
Speaking of memes, I've got another one that I'm going to be showing tonight for the season 3, the episode 3 episode of Mando. You haven't missed much though, Michael. I'm talking about the second episode and talking about how confused I am at the fact that Bo-Katan, yes, I get it that she trained with the Darksaber for longer than Mando did, but the weight issue that Mando has with the Darksaber doesn't seem to affect Bo-Katan. And why do you think that is?
I honestly don't know, because I don't know. I really do think it is an experience type of thing, because for as long as we've known Mando, we've never really seen him use any sort of bladed weapon, unless you want to count the Beskar spear.
Yeah, he was swinging that around like a lightsaber against Moff Gideon.
Yeah, but then again, that's not like a sword. That's like a stick with a pointy end on it.
True enough.
And I almost want to say, based on how we saw Moff Gideon fight with it, he had similar problems as Mandos currently have. But obviously, it wasn't as bad, but it was still. You could tell that he was just kind of hacking and slashing with it instead of actually using it like you would typically see a regular lightsaber.
True enough. I mean, it's not. I just hope they give us a better explanation other than. I think what they're trying to insinuate that the Darksaber is somehow sentient and is fighting against Mando and his will, and yet the Darksaber truly belongs to I guess Bo-Katan or something, because that would be directly ripping off Harry Potter if that's the case. Because again, remember in Deathly Hallows, the Elder Wand, when Voldemort gets his hands on it, we find out through a series of complicated events that the Elder Wand was supposed to go to Harry because, Draco disarmed Dumbledore, and so technically it belonged to Draco, but then Harry disarmed Draco, and so the Elder Wand was actually Harry's, but it was in Voldemort's hands, and he was trying to use it, and it was
Yeah,
resisting him.
yeah,
And
but I still don't know because I know that you haven't made your way this far into Rebels yet, but do you mind if I give some spoilers?
go ahead.
Alright, well, spoilers, if you haven't seen it, basically Sabine does train with the Darksaber and goes and basically has the same problems that Din has,
Yeah,
where
I,
she
I
actually does get trained by Kanan to use the Darksaber, but she's pretty much going through the same problems, except it was much deeper than her just being inexperienced with a weapon.
yeah, it was more like she was having a crisis of identity, right?
Yes, pretty much, and I think that's sort of what maybe they're trying to do for Mando, because the thing is, if you recall from season 2, he didn't want the Darksaber. He didn't want to rule Mandalore. He just wanted to go about his business and bring Grogu home. Now, of course, one of those things has now been kind of canceled out, being that Grogu's back in Mando's hands, but Mando still hasn't made any sort of effort to reunite the Mandalorian and the race in any sort of
That is
way.
true.
And
I mean,
also, there's a whole meme about it, but also kind of not a meme where both Katan didn't earn the dark saber because she was gifted it by Sabine towards the end of the show. Again, spoilers, but I think it's
true.
necessary to bring up.
Well, I guess we'll just have to look for when Mando uses the Darksaber next to see whether or not that theory holds true. Because if so, then his crisis of identity ideally should have been resolved by the end of this episode. Because at the end of this episode, Mando does indeed find the mines of Mandalore where the water is,
Yeah,
and does take a dip in the water, and by rights he is then redeemed.
yeah.
So
And
that
another thing I
aspect of go ahead.
and another thing I just thought of is if Disney really wanted to bring back Grogu, then they could have done it like this, where what if basically Din feels homesick for the kid because he took care of him for however long he took care of him, and he feels like he should still be there for Grogu, and then that's the whole identity crisis thing because, like the armorer said in the end of season 1, he was basically his father, at least until he was brought into the Jedi. But
I
you get what I
mean,
mean.
yeah, I get what you're saying. But like I said, that just further proves what I'm saying, where that's one aspect of his identity crisis that should no longer be there. And now the other one's no longer an issue too, with him now truly, by all rights and practices, reclaiming his identity as a Mandalorian. Any identity crisis he might have had should be gone by now. And so, following that logic, he should, with practice, of course, but he should be able to wield the Darksaber easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, it's just getting harder to really understand what exactly is going on.
Mm-hmm. So, another thing that happens in this episode is Mando gets captured. We're kind of going out of order here, but Mando gets captured, and Baby Yoda has to basically take Mando's ship to where Bo-Katan is and get Bo-Katan to go rescue him.
Mm-hmm.
And we see one of those weird caveman things confront Grogu, but Grogu is able to handle it with just a force push.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's one of those things where we knew it was going to happen because the trailer showed us that. So I really don't have any thoughts, good or bad, on it. But then, of course, the big thing that happened in episode 2 is that we see a mythosaur under the water inside the wellspring, whatever you want to call it. And first off, I did not expect mythosaurs to be that big.
Me either. I thought they would be a little bit smaller. Not by much, of course, but...
Mm-hmm. Nova, real quick about that Darksaber point, Nova brings up a good point in the chat. He says, watch this. They'll probably have it where Din asks Luke to train him to use the Darksaber. That could be, but I also feel like that would be a little bit of a cheap way to bring in Luke, truthfully. But then again, after what happened with Luke in Book of Boba Fett and how he basically forced Grogu to choose between staying or going back to Mando, I'm kind of where I don't want to see Luke anymore. At least not unless it's like some big groundbreaking thing that happens. And I feel like Mando asking him to train to use the Darksaber, it wouldn't be enough to justify it to me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying, right, Michael?
Yeah, I think so.
But like I said, that is episode 2, and I said this last week on EBN when I talked about it with them, but I give this episode an 8 out of 10. And what are you giving it, Michael?
I give it an 8 out of 10, especially because of how at least I didn't expect the mythosaur to be appearing.
Okay. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about episode 3 of Mando season 3, that being The Convert. And this was a weird one in the fact that half the episode wasn't even about Mando.
Oh yeah, this was really weird.
Yep. Real quick, hello to Nosferatu, the vampire, who says, hey boys, subbed from God Boreal's suggestion. Well, thank you very much, Nosferatu. I greatly appreciate that. And real quick, speaking of Nerdporeal, you'll notice that we're doing things a little bit early tonight. That's because at 8 p.m. Eastern, myself and Mando on Fire will be going to Nerdporeal's channel to join a big stream that he's doing with all of the people that he visited on his road trip, and we're going to talk about that trip. Also, real quick, shout out to X-Wing. How you doing, man? You're just in time for us to be talking about this episode right here. And I found this meme. I forget where I found this meme, but I found it today on either Facebook or Twitter, and I knew I had to share that today. as part of our stream. So
Yeah, well,
let's go
continuing
ahead and
on in that meme, that reminds me of something, and I'm sure that you've had to go through these things too, but I'll show it to you anyway. But just give me 1 second.
X-Wing says Lieutenant Biscuits was formed in the hangar bay. I believe it. That does sound like something you would call her.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Just gotta make sure that it's correct. There you go. More specifically, these.
Oh, I know these. Those random little. They are so dry but so good at the same time. Those of you that have ever eaten an MRE will know what these crackers are. And you put a little bit of spread jalapeno cheese on them. They're so dry because they're so chock full of preservatives, and yet they're so good.
Yeah, like these things are like, well, obviously not that one over there, but they're like the most versatile things ever, but they're also the messiest. And to this day, this is why I hate crackers, because of how messy they are, especially when you are, you know what, X-Wing, that is facts. That is facts, and I will straight up fight somebody if anybody says that.
Yeah, I do gotta agree with that too. But hello, of course, to the trickster, Phil McCracken. Let me just again, Michael, let me remind you of what it is you're gonna be getting into, because I am angry. And I'm angry with this gentleman right here because he tricked me into watching a terrible movie.
I tried to warn you. I tried to help you.
We told you.
That's going to be Michael very soon.
To be fair, I still haven't even thought about how exactly I'm going to go about this.
That is true.
I will say this. I have watched terrible movies before. In fact, I've even played terrible games before. Like, I will mention one thing. The Avengers game, I barely got 5 minutes in it, and I thought it was a load of crap. And then, let's see, what was also another bad movie I saw? I don't know. That's not important.
Suicide Squad?
Which one?
The old one?
Oh, no, not that one. I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, okay.
I saw the Suicide Squad.
Yes. Real quick, Black Dragon popped in. He says, I actually like MREs better than C-Rats. And X-Wing says, C-Rats were pretty F-word gnarly, not gonna lie. Dog food and hardtack or a can of beans.
I think that's a language. I think that is a language right there. Does that count?
Should I, Michael?
Do it.
All right. Sorry, X-Wing, but Michael's orders.
Language. And for gosh sake, watch your language.
Yeah.
And of course, Phil says, as the Force's family, Caddyshack 2. No, Caddyshack 2 is not meant for families. Okay. So, anyways, like I said, getting into this episode, like I said, half of this episode was not about Mando. The very beginning showed him, and then the very end showed him, but the entire middle portion was about that cloning doctor that we had seen previously, Dr. Pershing. And it's about him adjusting to his new life on Coruscant, having defected from the Imperial Remnant, wanting to join the New Republic. And just overall, Michael, this episode, what did you think?
I thought it was random to introduce this doctor when we haven't seen him since, like, technically it was in a hologram on either the 4th or 5th episode of season 2. But like I said, it's just Something
I
that
think
we
he made
just,
an appearance in the season 2 finale also, but I could be wrong about that.
yeah, but I don't know. Either way, it just felt random to throw this guy in. And then there's the officer where um she just kind of was thrown in there randomly as well. I honestly forgot that one scene had even existed of the
Same.
officer saying Black Dragon. Yeah, yeah,
That is true.
yeah. But like I said, it's just it was random. It wasn't a terrible plot point, but it was just random. And then what was even more random was the fact that they brought it in just to cut it short by the second half of this episode.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've seen a lot of people compare this episode to Andor's type of storytelling. And I don't quite know if I agree with that. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
an attempt to make it like Andor, but I don't think it succeeds. Because, and I've
Yeah.
said this before, that Andor's way of telling the story at the time just wasn't what I was looking for. I agreed with basically what they were saying, where Andor was a serious spy thriller and the Mandoverse is the Saturday morning cartoon. I think in hindsight, taking this episode and all of Andor into account, I feel like I got what I wished for with the Saturday morning cartoon, and now I'm not happy with it. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I think that does make sense.
So basically, the basic story is that Dr. Pershing wants to continue his cloning research, convinced that the New Republic could make good use out of it. And this one lady who is a former comms officer decides to help him, get back on his feet. And to do this, they, break into an old salvaged Star Destroyer. And this part still confuses me. Somehow it was like a double cross or something. The
Yeah.
lady wanted them to get caught so that he could get turned in and have his mind wiped, like in Dagger of the Mind.
Yeah. I don't know. And that's the one thing too, which I was honestly intrigued by this. In fact, what was that one scene where the doctor finally decides to pack up his stuff and leave? Because I actually noticed something in that scene where, if you listen very
Shoot.
closely to the music, that was eerily similar to the opera theater music that was being played during Darth Plagueis's type of story.
I honestly I wasn't paying attention to that part.
I'll have to show you. In fact, let me try to find it now if I can, because that caught my attention. I was like, wait a minute, what? And it kind of made me think, is it possible that we're going to see Moff Gideon again? Because I would love to
Oh,
see,
I guarantee we're going to. He's even said so himself.
yeah.
While you
Oh,
pull that
yeah.
up, Nova says they could have taken 3/4 of the Pershing story off and the show would still be awful.
Mm-hmm.
So while you're pulling that up, the parts of the episode that actually have to do with Mando, those legit are pretty cool. The dog fights near Bo-Katan's home just after the Empire gets done bombing it. That was cool, seeing Mando use his N1 starfighter in an actual fight. And then the very end, where Mando is welcomed back into the clan that he came from, the Children of the Watch, and Bo-Katan is welcomed also because she met the requirements. She had to go in and save Mando from drowning in the water, and she hadn't removed her helmet since, so she had the right to be part of them. And I feel
Yeah.
like she's going to stay with him for a while.
Yeah, which is kind of what made me think of why exactly was she joining in the first place. Then it kind of made me think, okay, well, she's kind of lost her home, so she has nothing else, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think she's gonna justify it in the next episode, being like, "I don't like these guys. I don't like the way that they believe, but right now I have nothing else. So just embrace the suck, basically."
Yeah.
And then the very end, as you're pulling that up, where Dr. Pershing is taken into that medical ward and he's hooked up to that mind eraser, the mind flayer, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
And we see that one Mon Cala dude, talking to him, and he's saying, "Oh, don't worry, it's a completely harmless procedure. I actually had it done myself not too long ago. It's quite pleasant," and something.
Hmm.
And they actually make an "it's a trap" meme in that scene. Like, did you notice that the moment that Dr. Pershing says it was a trap, they go immediately to that Mon Cala and he's just looking at the camera. You almost expect him to wink to the camera, being like,
Uh-huh.
haha, do you get it? Do you get it? Do you remember from Return of the Jedi?
Okay. So I've got it. I'm gonna see if it can be pulled up. So
Okay.
keep in mind, we're reacting to this. I'm going to make a point here. So this is him packing up his stuff, making sure that he's leaving. Just listen very closely to the music as much as you can. And of course, I'll pause it every couple of seconds just
Go
for
ahead.
YouTube. So
Also,
listen.
see you later, Nova.
So listen very closely.
It is
You
incredibly
hear
quiet.
that?
I can't hardly hear it.
Helping the New Republic.
Okay. Actually, yeah, I forgot to do something. I forgot to share the audio, so
Oh, I
mm,
heard the dialogue. I just can't hear the.
all right. Well, let's try this then.
I just turned up my headphones to full. I'm
Yeah,
probably gonna
like you're
regret
gonna
it.
have to turn up your you're gonna have to turn up your headphones or something, but just listen. Do you hear it
Helping the
now?
New Republic. It's the right thing to do.
I just heard a little bit of bass, and that's it.
Yeah. So
But if you,
I know it's a stretch, but it made me think.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from with it, and I wish I was paying a little bit better attention to the music there, because usually I am, but I think what I was doing. Okay, so full disclosure. Well, that's a lie. Somewhat full disclosure. I'm gonna leave some details out, but I on Wednesday and Thursday was not having a good day at work, and I was kind of already in a bad mood. So I intentionally did not watch this episode Wednesday because I had heard that some people weren't liking it, because I thought, I'm already in a bad mood. I'm not in the right mindset to watch this episode right now. So I watched it Thursday. I watched it Thursday in our loud break room, and you know how that gets, Michael.
Yeah.
So that's probably A, why I didn't catch the music, and B, maybe that plays a part into why I feel the way that I feel about this episode. Like, I don't hate it, but I had enough of shows getting hijacked by side characters in another character's show. We had that plenty, more than plenty, in Book of Boba Fett with the 2.5 Mando episodes that we got. And did you notice, by the way, Michael, they made sure to bookend this episode with Mando in the beginning and Mando in the end, because they saw how people responded to Boba not even appearing in 2 of the episodes of his own show.
I honestly didn't even think about it, but that does make sense, actually.
Yeah, it does. So with that, I'm giving this episode a 6 out of 10.
I'm giving it a 7 because, I mean, it could be worse, but I don't know. It's just, there's too many things that's really making me think about this, and not gonna lie, I kind of got a little bit too excited with the music, which usually is your job.
Yeah. So with that, let's move on to real quick. Mary Lanning gave it an 8 out of 10. Okay, that's good, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Like I said, I do not hate this episode. It's just, again, I want to watch The Mandalorian and see The Mandalorian. I don't want to watch The Mandalorian and just see an episode about a side character. I get it that it's world building, but the show is not called Dr. Pershing. The show is called The Mandalorian.
Yeah, which that makes sense too.
So with that, let's move on now to our final topic, something that we are admittedly incredibly late talking about because we did not cover this when it first came out. I wasn't interested at the time, but I did finally last week sit down and watch all of it, that being Tales of the Jedi. So you, Michael, you watched Tales of the Jedi when it first came out, correct?
A little bit after that, but yes.
Okay. And when you saw it, what did you first think?
I think that there was a lot of good stuff about it, but I think that for one thing, it definitely could have been better, except for the Count Dooku stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That was great, and I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Yeah, I sat down and watched it, like I said, the first time last week, and I already had some preconceived notions of what to expect from this show when it first came out. I admittedly really didn't follow any reviews of it because I wanted to remain as unspoiled as I could. But I already knew the basic structure of what was going to happen. The first episode, you get baby Ahsoka awakening her powers in the Force. The next 3 episodes after that is Dooku's slow turn to the dark side. And then the final 2 episodes of that are more Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And having now seen it, it's pretty much what I expected. No more, no less. And the best I can say is it's okay.
Yeah. And honestly, I really can't to complain about it except for possibly some of the Ahsoka bits.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we can get into those later.
Right. And it's funny that you say the Ahsoka stuff because going into this, even back when I wasn't really that interested in watching it, the Dooku stuff was what really interested me about this show because we've had plenty of Ahsoka stuff already when you consider everything she had been in up to this point. We had her in, well, ever since Disney took over, 7 seasons of the Clone Wars, 3 out of the 4 seasons of Rebels, plus the season 1 finale, and an episode of Mando and an episode of Boba Fett. And at least I personally was just finding myself not really needing more Ahsoka stuff. Now, that being said, there was nothing that they, well, almost nothing that they did with Ahsoka that outright bothered me. And even the thing that I did is just something small. But the Dooku stuff, however, that I really did like. Especially seeing him finally succumb to the dark side and have to kill Yaddle. That actually was an amazing episode. So the Dooku stuff starts with Dooku and Qui-Gon going and trying to rescue this one senator's son on this planet. And we see just how anti-political corruption Dooku is when he sees just how devastated this world is that this senator represents. And Dooku's literally about to strike him down right there. But both Qui-Gon and the senator's son manages to talk him down from that. And then the second episode with Dooku is about him and Mace Windu, notably before Mace Windu joins the council. The two of them going to this one planet and trying to figure out what happened to a certain Jedi Master that was murdered on that planet, and again uncovering a trace of senatorial corruption that in Dooku's anger led to that senator getting killed instead of arrested for trial. Or no, the senator wasn't even in on it. He was just a hapless bystander. Real quick, Nova says, back for a sec, didn't need the Ahsoka story, but I love the Dooku story. Hope we get more like these, even a Tales of the Sith story. That would be nice. The one thing I'm going to say, though, about this show as a whole is I would have preferred the episodes be a little bit longer. Are you back, by the way, Michael? Or are you... Okay, he's probably out walking the dog right now. But back to what I was saying. Basically, you see another step in Dooku's turn to the dark side when it's revealed that Dooku was being considered for a seat on the council, but that seat ended up going to Mace Windu instead, and Dooku was kind of bitter about that. And then finally, in the third episode with Dooku, we see him erasing the information on Kamino from the Jedi archives. But we also see him have, admittedly, a really nice conversation with a now adult Qui-Gon Jinn, as Dooku learns from Qui-Gon what this Sith Lord was like that he faced on Tatooine. This takes place during Episode 1. But then Yaddle, suspecting something's up with Dooku immediately after Qui-Gon dies, follows him to the more run-down section of Coruscant, and she sees Dooku in a secret meeting with who we, of course, know is Palpatine, but she didn't know that. She just saw this random Sith Lord. And I just want to say, as a side note, one of the things that I really liked about this episode is how scary they made Sidious in this. Is that you, Michael? He's probably getting settled back in. But still, like I said, the fact that they made... Let me just show you guys.
All right.
So I was talking, Michael, about how much scarier they made Sidious in Tales of the Jedi compared to when we see him in the Clone Wars.
I would say, yeah.
And how they mostly keep him in the shadows also when you see him. I'm trying to find a good shot of him like really far back in the shadows because that's just chilling. Unfortunately, I can't find one right now. This is the best I can do as far as that goes.
Yeah.
But still, look how That's almost like the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come right there from Christmas Carol.
And that's honestly how Sidious should be
Yeah,
portrayed, because that's how he was in the prequels.
it was. And again, this is a Darth Sidious before his face got all massacred by his own lightning, and they
As
still
well
made
as
him look scary.
as well as this is before Order 66, so he had a reason to
Yeah.
hide himself.
So Yaddle follows Dooku to this spot and confronts them both and gives Dooku a choice, saying, I know you've done some stuff wrong recently, but if you help me take in this Sith Lord now, you can redeem yourself. But Dooku is so committed to wiping out corruption and injustice in the Republic that he has fallen hook, line, and sinker for Darth Sidious's schemes.
Yeah.
And he sadly says, I'm sorry, old friend, but it's too late. And ends up killing Yaddle. And yet, he still has the respect enough for Yaddle to say, allow me to grant you a merciful death, master.
Yeah, and I honestly feel like that this specific death was actually a lot better than in the Legends book, where
Yeah?
I don't know if you remember this, but there was actually a book in Legends where basically Yaddle sacrifices herself to protect a younger version of Anakin. And
I
this was
had
when he was in the
remembered
Padawan.
that. I had remembered hearing about that. I never read that book, but maybe I might have to at some point.
Yeah.
But speaking of Yaddle, though, there is one thing about Yaddle. Everyone's talked about it. We're going to talk about it too. Why do they not have Yaddle speaking the same as Yoda?
Yeah, I honestly don't know.
Let's see. Black Dragon said Anakin also had those regrets when he took Windu's arm. Remember, he said out loud, "What have I done?" That is true. Dooku shows regret for killing Yaddle, and yet that doesn't stop him from fully turning to the dark side and becoming who we see him in Episode 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then we get the Ahsoka stuff. And again, despite the tone that I said that with, I did not hate any of it. I didn't. Just like I said, I'm kind of burned out a little bit on Ahsoka, which hurts to say because I have always loved that character. In fact, hold on a second.
Black Dragon, I think what you meant to say was that his arm went out the window.
Really?
Yes, I went there. What are you going to do about it?
Fair enough. But anyways, like I said, I love the character of Ahsoka. Heck, I have a figure of her right here that I need to put back on my shelf. But anyways,
Oh yeah, and
I
I'm also going to
I
turn
love
on
this
my
character.
camera here and blow my cover. But I actually have this specifically.
I believe, yeah, I have the season 7 Funko one of that somewhere around here.
Yeah. And
in fact, I think I was with you when you got that. That was in Tennessee, right?
Actually, yes. And the funny part was that we found this at a knife shop.
That is true.
And here's the thing. I kind of grew up with Ahsoka because I was probably, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years old when I first remember renting the Clone Wars movie And even though I didn't religiously watch the Clone Wars,
Mm-hmm.
I still kind of grew up watching this character and seeing her grow up. And of course,
Yeah.
I've made my statements about how I felt about her other roles, such as in Rebels, and then how I reacted to one specific episode.
Mm-hmm.
But well, two specific episodes, but they were different reactions. But I do think that she's getting overutilized.
Yes. And there's honestly only one reason why she's getting so much used is because this character is Dave Filoni's baby. And naturally, this is his original character, his OC. Naturally, he's going to be protective of this character and isn't going to want anything really bad to happen to this character.
Yeah.
And he's going to want to work it into just about everything he can.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, Dave. I say this as someone that is a fan of this character. It's getting to be too much. And at some point, she's going to have her story end forever.
Yeah. And as much as I'd hate to admit that too, it's true just because sooner or later she will become, as we now call, a Disney princess.
Not to mention, we also know that by the time of the Rise of Skywalker, she's dead.
Well, at least that we can gather, because she had her voice voiced by Ashley Eckstein talk to Rey, and let's see, what was I thinking of?
Yeah.
And the thing is, she's the perfect non-Disney princess character, where she earns her keep and she earns her spot, even if she really had to struggle with it. But she
Exactly.
also had some challenges to overcome, such as her own arrogance, and she had to take on a leadership role, even if she wasn't necessarily ready for it, as well as the fact that she was falsely accused of murder and plotting and possibly sedition and treason.
So, and like I said, the one scene that Ahsoka was involved in that really I did not like was the fact that Ahsoka was there at Padme's funeral. Now, before anyone says anything, yes, it makes sense that she would want to be there because she was close friends with Padme. But at the same time,
basically, don't be stupid.
Yeah. Not to mention, I have a bit of a hard time buying that she would get from wherever it was she was with Rex when that ship crashed all the way to Naboo.
In a matter of like hours?
Yeah. I don't know how much time passed between the institution of Order 66 and Padme's funeral, but somehow it just feels like it just feels a bit too unbelievable to me.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, that's the only thing that happened. Actually, hold on a second. There's another thing, another bit of controversy that we need to touch on that I believe you mentioned, Michael, and that's the fact that that last Ahsoka episode seemingly retconned the Ahsoka novel.
Seemingly, yes, but yeah, let's talk about that, because keep in mind I've not read the entire Ahsoka novel. I've been meaning to for
Neither
years,
have I.
but I have a general idea of what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will touch on one thing before we go to the bad news. There is good news, and that is the design of the Inquisitor of this episode.
Yes, the Inquisitor looks amazing.
That's probably the best thing and probably the only good thing out of this episode. I'm probably exaggerating when I say that, but I don't know.
So basically, the Inquisitor looks like he's wearing a bird skull for a mask, and it looks really cool. And of course, he has the standard Inquisitor. He has the standard Inquisitor lightsaber design. That's basically a saber staff with a circle around the hilt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe we see him spin it.
Yeah.
Which, I'm kind of over the whole spinning lightsaber thing at this point. It doesn't bother me, but it also doesn't excite me. But as far as the fight with Ahsoka and the Inquisitor, as someone that has not read the Ahsoka novel, I thought it was okay, but I was confused by why they made it seem like his helmet, the Inquisitor's helmet, was hollow. Because notice how the air just came out of it as he fell, as if he turned to a Force ghost right there, which is something that Darksiders usually cannot do.
Yeah. And in fact, did you pull up a picture of the thing?
I didn't. Did you?
No, but I'll go ahead and get that done. And yeah, that's
Okay.
another thing because, I mean, that gets into a whole nother can of worms where, except for maybe Sidious, we really don't see them materialize out of thin air.
Yeah. The only person in Star Wars anything that we've seen even close to that, at least from what I'm told by my cousin, is Darth Nihilus. That's what happens to him at the end of Knights of the Old Republic 2 when you strike him down, because it's revealed, that Darth Nihilus, being a void in the Force, was basically he drained the living force out of anything, but it cost him his own body to the point that his spirit was basically bound inside his armor.
And his mask specifically, which
Yeah.
that was particularly interesting. So anyways, here I have it right here. Now,
Okay.
this is something that I really appreciate from this episode right there, where of course we get the usual, looks like generic Inquisitor lightsaber, but then his mask right there is what stands out.
Yeah. And that is a great mask. And I just thought of another comparison to make. When he dies and his mask loses the air, it's like Eowyn stabbing the Witch King in the face, and how, at least in the movie, his helmet just crumbles in on itself.
Yeah, and I believe that the person who was I believe that the Inquisitor was the sixth brother, but let me go ahead and just double check that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. It should have been that guy right there, right?
It
At least in
might have
some
been.
sort of. I mean, that's one
Those
might.
look like Skyrim swords he's holding.
I mean, someone can correct me in the comments and tell me if that guy was supposed to be it, but I don't know. It was supposed to
Right.
be the sixth brother, but we don't even know who that is. Wait, were
That is
we
true.
addressing Phil as president?
Yes, that's been something the two of them have been doing. She
Okay.
calls him president, he calls her princess.
Okay. And so, here's the thing. Even though that this doesn't go into a whole lot of detail on what Ahsoka was doing there, so it kind of leaves it somewhat ambiguous, I still feel like that maybe this was a way to retcon the Ahsoka novel, outside of the fact that in the Ahsoka novel, Ahsoka had her green lightsabers back, and they were green colored. but in the show it was blue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, personally, I think it looks better with her outfit being blue, but that's a whole nother thing.
So, one thing I want to touch on before we do that, overall, Tales of the Jedi, I give it a 7 out of 10 for the whole thing. Like I said, it was pretty much what I expected, and I didn't necessarily walk away wanting more, but I also didn't walk away wishing it had never been made.
Yeah,
It's just one of those things like, that was all right. Let's move on.
A bit rich, but it was okay.
But there is,
But it wasn't like. But it wasn't like. Nice.
No, exactly. And then going back to the idea of retconning Star Wars books, that flies directly in the face of what they first said about Star Wars media when Disney took it over and scrapped the old EU. They made a point to say that everything from this point forward is canon. That they said when Disney really started making content for it, here's what's canon: the original 6 movies and the Clone Wars and the 3D Clone Wars TV show. Everything else is deemed Legends canon that came out before. But going forward, every single book and video game and TV show that we make will be canon. So if everything that they make is canon, and yet things that are appearing on TV shows are retconning things that appear in books, what are you doing?
Yeah, which I'm not one to complain about this sort of thing for the most part, but just makes sense about what exactly you're doing. Like, if you were purely doing this just for a character design thing, then you know what? Fine. I am willing to agree that the blue lightsabers looked better on Ahsoka with the kind of outfit she was wearing. It just fit.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it doesn't match what's going on, and so we ask again, what are you doing? Like,
so is it, the way I see it, either it's canon or it's not. And Black Dragon says it best. We all know that Disney doesn't follow their own rules.
mm-hmm.
That is true.
Yeah.
But like I said, either it's canon or it's not. And truthfully, I think, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, but I think the way that Star Trek does it is best, where only stuff that appears in live action is canon. Anything that's in print or animated is considered not canon. Now, I wouldn't take quite that same approach with Disney. I would include animated stuff in the canon too, but the way I would do it, video games and books, personally, I would make them not canon. Because aside from having to keep details straight, not having to worry about that, that basically frees you up to do, within reason, whatever you want.
Yeah, which is how we get things like The Force Unleashed, where that was an absolutely bat crap game that I 100% enjoyed, but I know that at the time, even though it wasn't officially retconned into the Legends category, there's no way that by today's standards that game would be made and be considered canon. They would have to completely nerf the character of Galen Merrick to make him fit the canon. But then again, that leads to other questions like, well, why is Kylo and Rey all that more powerful? Which, I don't know. Rey is kind of obvious, but I'm not going to say out loud. You're just going to look at my name and you can know exactly what I mean.
That is true. So, like I said, Tales of the Jedi, I liked it okay. I didn't walk away from it wishing it had never existed, but I'm also not walking away from it wanting more. If this is all that we get from Tales of the Jedi, then I'm satisfied. So with that, I think
Yeah.
we're gonna go ahead and end it for the night. But like I said, here in about 50 minutes from now, myself and Michael are gonna be on Nerdporial's channel, and we're gonna be talking with him about that road trip that we had, in which he basically, as one of his stops, came to visit us.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and put a link. I think he has it already uploaded. Let me double check.
I think he does, but you know what? It's good to check anyways.
Yeah. Let's see. Yep, he does. So I'm putting the link to the stream in the chat now. So I will see you guys. So we will see you guys on this stream in about 50 minutes from now. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll remind you guys just one more time. I said it earlier. If all goes well, myself, Michael, and Jonathan are going to be making a very special video on Wednesday, the 27th, involving these.
I
So
see.
that being said, see you guys later, and the Force is family.